We're back live on X and YouTube. It's the Agoric Composers live stream. We're here today. I'm with my co-host.
Oh, Ant-Man. I was like, you forgot already?
No, I'm trying to do I was trying to ship it off to you, but it's all good. We're here today live on X and YouTube. We're excited to have a conversation with our guests from Ryzen. We have Santi and Giovanni from our side. They're going to be on stage in 1 second. But, there's a couple things that I want to mention to the people viewing us right now. If you're watching us in the future, thank you. Retweet, share, like, leave your comments. We're excited to continue this live stream series with you all. I think things are getting better. The intro was new. We got a new little flavor here, so it's really exciting. And again, we reached our milestone of 55K on X. So super excited that as well. Again, appreciate all of you following us. Appreciate you all following along on our journey as we continue to orchestrate all of Web3. So Ant-Man, what do you think? And talk to the people.
All right. Well said, Miguel. It's great to be back for the next issue of the Composer series after the holidays. Got a lot to cover. I'm really excited to dive into it. The speakers chat's already been popping off. It sounds like they're ready to get started too. I know we're going to cover a lot of stuff. Santi was absolutely crushing it out there during India Blockchain Week, and really excited to hear from him and and how everything went.
Dope, 100%. So again, if you're watching us live on YouTube or X, feel free to leave your comments. We see you. We see every single one of you. And also, if you're watching after the fact, feel free to retweet, reshare, engage with us. We're always looking at your comments. We're always looking forward to speaking to you, our community. So again, super excited to get the conversation started. So I think no better moment than to start now. So we'll see you in a second with our guests. Gentlemen, welcome to the Composer series. This is featuring our guests. This is Ankit from Ryzen. I'll let you guys give a short intro. So from my right side, I see Santi at the top. So why don't you kick us off?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me. Yeah, so with Agoric, lead marketing director here at Agoric, mostly focused on our builder program. So everything that has to do with bringing on the next orchestration developers. I'm driving that charge with the help of the folks here who I'll let themselves introduce.
Hello. My name is Giovanni. Some people know who I am, some people don't. I've been leading DevRel here at Agoric, engineer for quite a long time. Pleasure to be here again, of course.
Hey, Ankit here from Ryzen. Super excited to be on this show today. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm super excited to work with Agoric to bring it to the developers in our community. So Ryzen is one of the biggest developer communities in the world. We work with layer 1s and layer 2s to bring more developers to them, grow their community. So basically, we educate, incubate, and accelerate developers and projects and help expand the Web3 ecosystem together, or help orchestrate Web3 ecosystems, together. So yeah, that's about me.
Awesome, and I know that we're coming hot off a fantastic week from IBW 2024. Before we get into the questions, any quick thoughts on, or any kind of reflection on the event, or anything top of mind? I know that it was a really fruitful week for Agoric and Ryzen and the team in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly bullish on India in more ways than one. I'll leave it at that and dive into it. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. I've honestly never seen anything like it. So I'm sure we'll dive into some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. It's really interesting because I unfortunately wasn't in terms of participation, right? So that's not a coincidence either.
Yeah, obviously I'm an Indian guy, so obviously I have to be bullish on India. But regardless, I think we have a great developer ecosystem there and a great builder ecosystem in India. And I think together with Agoric, we have tapped into that from a high level. But I think in the year to come, we want, like, the hackathon that we did has set the stage for making it even bigger in 2025.
Awesome, and I think so to kick it off, I think for everyone listening, the vision behind the partnership with Agoric and Ryzen, we announced it a couple of weeks ago, and we went straight to work during IBW 2024 in regards to DevRel and just in general having the courses ready and pulling off the first hackathon. So my first question will be towards you, Santi. You mentioned you're very bullish on India. So how does this partnership with Ryzen align with Agoric's mission to grow, our multi-chain developer ecosystem?
Yeah. So I mean, building multi-chain, cross-chain is hard. It's not an easy feat, and Giovanni can probably attest to that from a technical perspective. When we were looking for a partner to bring, a lot of these initiatives forward where we can put our technology in front of entrepreneurs and builders, we kind of set out to find an agency and a team like Ryzen specifically that kind of understood the complexities of that and have actually worked with other chains and ecosystems, whether L1s, L2s. And so for us, the alignment is strong because not only does Ryzen kind of understand the picture of the entire Web3 ecosystem, the developers who, and I'll get more into this later, but like the developers who actually joined our events also had experience in other ecosystems, right? And so they kind of naturally understood the challenges that came with wanting to develop something on Agoric, for example, that could communicate, across IBC and the Cosmos ecosystem, but also in the future kind of work outwards, right? Because they're already coming from those ecosystems. So that was, for me, that was like one of the big strong alignments. Like they get the space, they get the challenges developers are facing, and we want to learn from that and extract as much value and honestly give back that value to those developers in a way that makes sense for them. So for us, that's where the alignment for me was so strong.
Yeah, and then if I could piggyback on that, and I don't know how much alpha this is going to be, Santi, but I'm just going to talk. So,
do it.
The way we look at it too is look at it logistically, right? Like if we have a growing developer ecosystem, and you have this one organization who not only do they have feet on the ground, but they're also building technical product where they're building courseware so that all of their partners can pretty much work with them to create content and ingest that content into the courseware. So if you think about the onboarding logistics for any new developer on Agoric, we send them to YouTube, a bunch of videos, we send them to our docs, we send them to our dApps, but we don't send them to any specific courseware. And so when you start adding this strategically dynamic courseware into the onboarding process, now it makes it where your developer program is more scalable. And so when we have new partners and new developers, right now we have this army of an international organization with technical product and feet on the ground actually running with us. It's literally a key component to scaling a builder's program, regardless on if you work with Ryzen or anybody similar, right? So that right there just makes the future super exciting with Ryzen and Agoric. Hopefully that's not too much alpha.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. I think fantastic perspective there, Giovanni. So then my next question would be to Ankit then. Why us? Why was Agoric such a strong partner for Rise's mission to empower these developers? And what any kind of perspective you give from working with us during IBW?
Yeah, so I think Agoric was one of the strong partners because of a few reasons. One, I think in the Web3 landscape, there is a big trend towards going multi-chain, right? Obviously a lot of L1s, L2s, all of them are like, okay, just like build natively on me, be in the ecosystem, don't kind of, add value to another ecosystem. But that is changing heavily in last 1 year, and it will change because like every chain has their own pros and cons. And from that perspective, we wanted, and we had a lot of demand from our developers as well, that how do I build multi-chain products. So right now what happens is that a hacker or a developer or a builder builds in one L1, like let's say for example Solana or on Ethereum, and then they want to build on something else as well, right? Because they see the benefits of building on another chain, which has a niche use case, and they can benefit off of it. But right now, it's pretty complex for them to do that. So obviously, two key things. One, obviously, the trends are pointing towards products going multi-chain, and then a lot of developers inquiring about how can I build multi-chain products without me getting stuck in technical complexity. And that is where we thought, if you bring in Agoric, because that's the whole ethos of Agoric and orchestration in general, to empower builders to build products which are multi-chain from day one. So it's like a value add for both Ryzen and Agoric and the community that we're building for as well. So it was essentially a no-brainer to partner and kind of bring this. And like, to be honest, I'm honored that out of all the other communities, dev communities out there, we were the chosen ones to bring this thing to life. So I'm really excited about it and honored as well.
Yeah, I want to add one thing too. Note for Ryzen that one of the reasons that we initially also had that kind of that alignment was when we met originally with the team. Probably, oh God, I think maybe a year ago at this point. I have to ask Cool John, but they had a really data first process to what they did, right? And in this industry, data is really important. And so they had done a lot of surveying and kind of. They had built internal processes to survey developers that gave a really good picture of where they were, and more than that, also like where to not make the mistakes a lot of other companies have made when trying to run these kind of international builder programs. And so I can dive into those later, but that was one of the big things that I think stood out for us with Ryzen that made it really valuable.
That's a perfect segue into diving a little bit into some of the details of the partnership. There's the curriculum that we worked on and the Fast Hack series, and I definitely want to make sure that we spend a little time talking about each one because I think it's really cool we've got going on there. Just to start off, Giovanni, it would be great if you could talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges that developers are facing. Ankit mentioned that these multi-chain developers they want to build these things, but these things are hard for them, and that what might be some examples of that, and specifically how are we addressing them in the curriculum that we worked on with Ryzen?
Yes, that's a good question. And I didn't know you was going to ask that, so I think this is going to be a really good, honest answer. So I think one thing is one of the things that a lot of developers have issues with when they're building cross-chain environments is how do they test it and debug it. And so even on other chains, right, there is no substitute. Well, there's not a lot of substitutes for you actually running multiple chains at once locally or remotely and connecting them. And so one of the big ways that we get around this, and I won't even mention multi-chain testing yet, right? From a JavaScript perspective, one of the great ways that we get around it is our testing suite is a lot different than a lot of other projects, because since we're JavaScript house, you can use the standard JavaScript debugging tools that you're already accustomed to. And what this means is, imagine you writing a contract and you being able to set a breakpoint inside of a contract so that when the contract runs, it stops at this specific line in your contract so that you can debug what's happening at that stage of execution. What's interesting about that is because you're doing your work in VS Code and you have these testing tools that you're already accustomed to, it makes it where you can arrive at a reasonable amount of confidence that your contract works the way that you designed it to work without even ever have to talk to a network because of our superb testing tools, I would say. But then when you go to take it a step beyond that, we also have infrastructure that we use to set up actual local multi-chain environment for developers. And we call this multi-chain testing. For those of you in the audience who've ever used the orchestration dApp, this is the backbone of how it works. So we set up this thing that we call multi-chain testing, which comprises of Kubernetes and Starship, which allows you to pretty much orchestrate these containers that pretty much make up the entire network that you want to test on. And so because we have that environment, this infrastructure, you can parameterize it and like launch different configurations of networks. But the combination of those two things, solving this big problem of debugging and testing your environment, working together allows for you to really do end-to-end tests, whether they're mock tests and actual like integration tests. But on top of that, developers have other issues in terms of developing, right? But I know you mentioned specifically like the difficulty with setting up these networks. But one big thing is when developers are actually doing their testing, the confidence that you have in how your contracts work when you're mocking up tests and when you're running your tests, it's a reasonably high amount of confidence because of our testing suite. But how you arrive at 100% confidence pretty much is when you actually deploy your contract to a new chain. So us supporting that progression from local kind of mocked up testing to local integration testing to then doing stuff on test nets, I think that's a pretty useful feature that not a lot of projects have for their developers. But I can talk about more stuff on that all day, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's awesome. So given that, Santi, from being on the ground at the Fast Hacks, what could you say? Would you say that like by the end of the day, by the end of the event, do you feel that like developers walked away with like, oh, like, I got a sense of like what that multi-chain testing Giovanni was talking about, or like I have a better sense of how to do some of these like cross-chain asset transfers or whatever?
Yeah, so it's funny. So we had a lot of submissions, a lot of projects built during it, with a very varying degree of use case that they focus on in problem statement. So I think at the core, I would say everybody walked away with understanding kind of the ins and outs of an orchestration contract, right? Like Giovanni pointed out, a contract that can that they can write, they can customize, they can run some tests on. And I think fundamentally, I would say, and Ankit can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I think maybe like 80% of them were all cross-chain focused, right? So they were trying to do something where they had a use case like payments through QR codes, or they had a lending protocol, or they had anything, any kind of core use case that they wanted to be able to either enable varying degrees of assets, different types of assets across Cosmos IBC to come in and be used on the user side, or they were trying to send that back out some way, or just do something with those assets natively on their application, like some yield-bearing stuff that people were building, or again, payments, or there's a lot NFT marketplaces. But fundamentally, like the core, everyone walked away with understanding that like I can write an orchestration contract in JS, right? I can deploy this to some extent, right? Obviously, 2 days is not a lot of time to actually build a project. And then I can see where this goes now from like a chain abstraction perspective, right? And that was one of the big things we talked a lot about with developers was like, yes, under the hood, there's all of these cross-chain components working. There's these contracts you're dealing with. There's these testing environments. But at the end of the day, like think about how to build something that's incredibly simple and straightforward for a user, right? Again, whether that's payment or some kind of DeFi primitive. And I think everyone walked away with that, which was a big win for us, right? Because from an Agoric perspective, like, we have a strong ethos, we have a strong mission towards this kind of chain abstraction philosophy, right? Where, and so anyways, we had a lot of conversations, and I think everyone walked away with that pretty, pretty clearly, I guess.
That's awesome, because I saw some of the pictures that you were sharing. It seemed like we had really, really great attendance at these events. But that being said, with all these different use cases of varying degrees of complexity, how did we make sure that the program was structured so like whether you were like a beginner or an expert, you were able to sort of get into at your entry point and then build right from there? Yeah.
So I think Ankit, I'll start Ankit, and then I know Ankit's team actually organized it all. They provided a lot of counseling to us and feedback on how to do this. But there's kind of two layers to the program, right? And the first layer is what I'll just call a fast hack for now, right? Which is this environment where you allow developers to come in for a day, maybe a day and a half. You allow them to actually learn your tech stack, right? Actually get accustomed and familiar with it in person, where we also provide those, those DevRel resources. And then there's more technically what we did in Bangalore, which was really a hacker house, right? Kind of residency, where we want people who who have learned a decent amount about us, maybe are still pretty new to us, but actually have that time and environment to ideate, work on those use cases more deeply, rather than spending so much time having to learn. And that's kind of the model that I think Ryzen has helped us build. And Ankit, if you want to add to that, go for it. But and I'll add one thing here, which I think Ryzen was really good at, is pre-qualification. And so pre-qualifying candidates before they come is really important. And that's something, Ankit, like Ryzen can actually do, because you have so many devs, right? You're not just like pulling at straws, right? Like, oh, who can show up? It's like, no, we actually have a massive database and network of developers. Let's actually qualify and pre-qualify developers before they get to this event, so that by the time, so the people are there already have a kind of drive and an interest to actually build Agoric and don't come across such intense technical hurdles, right? Like, which you can imagine would happen. So I don't know, I'll let you add to that, because you're kind of the mastermind here.
Yeah, that's the perfect transition. Definitely want to hear from you, about how you structured the education program for us and what some of your thinking was into how you put it together in the events. And really just, we touched a little bit on, the expertise that Ryzen brings to the table. So would love to hear what you really helped us mastermind, as Santi said.
Yeah, so I will talk about I'll talk about the developer's journey in general. So let's say we have a lot of developers who are transitioning from Web 2 to Web 3, and then there is a second category of developers who are already building something in Web 3. So the educational content that we developed addresses to both, but more so to the people who are in Web 2 and want to come into Web 3. So basically, they get a sense of like what is it like to build in Web 3. And that gives us that is more like top of the funnel. A lot of people, kind of learning it, like kind of getting educated about Agoric, how to build things on Agoric. But with just courses, it never works. Like, we have too many courses online available right now for anything under the sun, and there is no point in kind of just doing a course. Right? It is good to kind of give you a segue into Agoric, but it doesn't deliver a really good output, so to say. That's why with our experience of working with various chains before, we said that, okay, let's we used to run boot camps, like we still run boot camps, offline adult boot camps, where people come learn, like build something small and then go home. But we said that for Agoric, we need it to be more intensive, because the learning curve is a bit more as compared to just building on like Ethereum VM based chains, right? Where you have a lot of things just
Right.
made out of the box, right? So that's why we said, since the learning curve will be a little higher, let's instead of doing like 1 day IRL workshop, let's do 1.5 or 2 days fast hacks. Thanks, Santi, for coming up with that name. But the agenda there is to kind of just get everything set up for developers, and also help them, not just help them from a development perspective, but also help them from a product perspective, right? So a lot of these developers also struggle with with kind of thinking about what to build, right? So when we started the hackathon, we had a lot of ideas which were not relevant, right? It was like, okay, I'll just build a random NFT marketplace, right? Like, developers being developers, they're like, okay, I will just not spend too much time on kind of thinking about product. But that is where we added a lot of value, like me, Santi, and the whole Ryzen team, kind of sat with them, like one-on-one with the teams, to come up with more, like refine their ideas. Okay, instead of like building it right now, just wait, brainstorm with us, think what you want to build, don't just have a product sense, but also think about how this is gonna benefit the user or the community in general. So we refined those ideas, then they started building, and then we got into like the technical details, technical troubleshooting, all of that, right? So that's the thing that we did at Fast Hack. and it worked. And like we have done this time like over and over again with all the other chains that we work with, uh, because developers, they can like go through all the documentation, build stuff, but when it comes to kind of building actual products that actually can go, can go and gather a lot of users is really really difficult. I'm sure like Giovanni, you would have been to a lot of hackathons where people are building just like random stuff, right? Like they'll just build it for the sake of building and kind of winning the hackathon prize and then disappear. But interestingly, in our fast hack, we had a lot of consumer products also getting built. Like one of the examples was cat off, right? So where the guys built a
Yeah, that was wild.
used, yeah, they built a, so basically it's a product where you can challenge challenge your friends on like to do a push-up challenge, and it can extend to like various things as well, like various other games. So basically you kind of record a video of you doing a push-up, another friend doing a push-up, and AI will kind of do the counting and stuff, and then you kind of get rewarded from a prize pool that people can bet over, right? So that was an interesting use case. Like we loved it. Like so yeah, those were the kind of things that were getting built. So just to summarize, like obviously, just to summarize, like developers, we have like a big community of developers, and everyone is at a different stage, right? So if someone is new, course is good for them. They get the gist of it, become more interested in kind of building, and then they come to our, let's say, IRL events. It can be a boot camp, it can be a fast hack, it can be a hackathon, right? Whatever you call it. And those guys are much serious about building something something more realistic. And then from those guys we figure out, okay, out of the 100 guys who attended the fast hack, I think these 20, these 25 are more serious about like building for the long term. And then we do then we kind of help them with our builder programs. We're all, like me and Santi were talking about doing something more intimate for them, so that they also, so that they feel supported by the ecosystems, and they also get motivated to build for the long run. Because like it's very easy to for any ecosystem to just come and say like, I have got support for you, but like giving actual real support is very very difficult, extremely difficult. And I think that is where the chains who give that support like thrive in the ecosystem.
That sounds great. Sign me up.
Yeah, so real quick, again, for those of you who's watching us live, 250 plus across YouTube and X, thank you for joining us this early Wednesday morning. I see all of you. There's some love here for Ankit from Armando in Barcelona. And then we have Amrock here saying hello. Hello to you too. We see you all. I see all the comments.
Shout out to Armando. He's one of our he won the hackathon in, I think they placed second in wherever Cosmo.
Yeah, Dubai.
Yeah, Dubai. Yep. Yeah. Shout out to Armando.
Nice.
Yeah. Shout out to him from my side as well. Like he's one of the coolest hackers that I know.
Oh, nice. We gotta get Armando on here next. Build something, bro, so we can get you up here in a future episode.
So I think we started the conversation off with a teaser of alpha. So I have 3 questions for each of you individually, where you could get more alpha, or this is kind of the big picture finale here. So where are we kind of seeing this partnership grow from here? So I'm going to start with you, Giovanni. So how do you envision orchestration evolving to support more complex cross-chain applications in the future?
Interesting. More complex support. And these things are just out of my brain. I haven't talked to anybody here about it, but I think I've heard murmurings of some of these things. So I know we've done some work to help, because one of the things about setting up multi-chain environment on your machine is the resources needed, right? You may have Docker, you might have Kubernetes, but your machine just may be taxed on all of the resources. So we've done some. Patrick on our team, shout out to him, has done some work to reduce what that footprint is. the resource consumption footprint for multi-chain testing. So that's like light stuff, right? But I would like to see one day we have a way, and I think Michael Fig might be doing something like this, no alpha. It will be, because I see this word of like synthetic chain floating around internally. It'll be great if we could somehow give a local chain environment to a developer, but it's really just pretending to be a local chain environment. Like imagine a single node that when it's doing IBC calls, you can pretty much somehow configure the state of that IBC call to force it to fail, force it to pass, or something like that. And then the environment should like tell the contract, oh, hey, this IBC message has succeeded, or pretend to succeed, right? And that way you won't need a multi-chain environment. But then, that solves one part of the equation, because on the other side, there's still this thing where when you develop applications, you still want to rest assured that it's going to behave exactly the way you want. And so anytime you have some code that you want to know this behaves a certain way, and you put things in between it and its actual destination, it's, you're increasing the amount of guesswork that you have to do, even though you're using, technological tricks and things to make it seem real. I think that there's really not a lot of substitutions for a real cross-chain environment. So one thing I would love to see is, this is probably some alpha, is, we use these tools like multi-chain testing and Starship, but I would love for developers to be able to parameterize it, where if let's say if I'm a developer, I go to a new hackathon and I want to build something on Secret, Osmosis, and Agoric, I should be able to, in a configuration somewhere, say, give me a Secret node, give me an Osmosis node, and give me an Agoric node, make them talk this way. You can kind of lightweight do that now, but it only supports a certain amount of chains. And that support set is equal to the amount of chains that Starship supports. So I do want to see more things like that. Obviously, we've already started to work to implement more example orchestration contracts into dApp orchestration basics, because dApp orchestration basics has pretty much like the most vanilla type of contracts you could see in there, because it's a learning tool. But we, people like Patrick and company on the team have built examples to do like restaking and auto staking and sending over any IBC channel. So we're pretty much taking more of those example contracts and putting them into dApp orchestration basics. So that's another thing that I think is going to help more. I think you mentioned like more complex support or something like that, I think was the question. And if I could say one more, I think that, right now, all of our environments are specific to Cosmos, right? And I know the world knows about our EVM work that we're doing. So at some point, you should be able to, when you're spinning up your environment, you should be able to say in that configuration, give me 2 EVM chains, 1 Polygon, 1 Arbitrum. And then maybe ideally that configuration spins up the overlay network between the two, whether it's like Axelar or another. Or maybe in the future, that configuration brings up not only Agoric, Osmosis, and whatever, but it brings up a EVM chain 1 and 2, but then it also may bring up relayers that directly relay packets between those EVM chains and Agoric, because those things do exist, right? So I think that's 4 things right there that I think would be huge, that I think should pretty much be coming down the pipeline. And I could probably say 10 more, right? But I'll probably stop it there for the sake of the time.
You just put your sales hat on for the engineers.
Yes, it's 4 things people are going to be asking. When are they done?
No. But honestly, those things would change the game. And really, when you start thinking about connecting to heterogeneous ecosystems like Solana and stuff like that, that infrastructure starts to be super important, because some of these, some chains are easier to run from a resource consumption perspective than others, right? So that stuff tends to be really easy, and it shouldn't never be the case that developers are struggling at just that infrastructure part, right? Like we want to make that a thing of the past. So, but yeah, I'll stop right there. I can say more, of course.
Yeah, I think that was a fantastic response. And for our kind of eagle-eyed listeners and viewers, it's not the first time you've heard us talk about Agoric EVM. Yeah, and if you have, then you're probably in the Discord, agoric.com/Discord. For those of you who are not already in there, make sure to join. Fantastic community, always giving ideas and giving feedback to the team. So shout out to them. But devs devs are trendsetters. Whatever they kind of ask, they build. Whatever they ask, someone else builds for them. So I think overall, these trends, and I want to end with our guest. So I'm gonna ask Santi first. What are some broader trends in the space that kind of make our partnership with Ryzen super relevant today and for the future?
Trends in the space. I mean, okay. I think there's a big one that we've talked about extensively, which is definitely multi-chain. That's a huge trend. I think chain abstraction is also one that we've helped champion right this year. That's now starting to gain a lot of traction, and I've heard it, not just through discussions at our events, but at IBW on stage, right, at Unfold on stage, which is the side of an IBW. I heard a lot of people talking about chain abstraction and this kind of drive to simplify the user experience so that users don't need to deal with all the underlying blockchain and tech that can complicate things when they have a specific intent they want to take on an app or a solution or a service. So I think that's going to be big, and I think with Ryzen, I mean, it's self-explanatory, right? Working with devs early, right? Being almost their first foray into this chain abstraction, multi-chain environment with all the tooling that Giovanni said, we're going to have next week. And then, that's a really powerful package, right? Like there's this massive industry narrative that's like driving towards that. Everyone wants to connect their assets. Like, for example, we had a guy who was very Solana native developer who came to our Fast Hack. He had an app that was on Solana, and it wasn't complete by any means, right? But he was already working on this, and he was like, I really want the Agoric APIs and orchestration implemented in my app so that I can connect to Cosmos IBC, and in the future, go into EVM and just generally orchestrate my solution a lot smoother. Because right now, for users, if I want to implement those things to go multi-chain, it's going to be kind of a nightmare, right? And it's completely against the notion of chain abstraction, right? And so I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of those things where people have these like pre-existing strengths or solutions, right, that they've built or that they're working on, and they want to make it a lot simpler in Web3 for their users. And I think our goal is that Agoric, from a trend perspective, becomes the place you do that. And another good example is, Ankit was talking about this team that built this computer vision fitness challenge thing, right? It all had Python AI experience, right, which is where they had built and kind of constructed this computer vision model where a user can do push-ups or squats, and the AI actually recognizes whether they're doing it or not. That team comes from a Python background, right? But now they're like, okay, but we want to implement a solution, a chain abstraction solution, where Agoric can orchestrate all of these underlying assets and make it simple for people to just bring on the assets they want, do that betting live on the app. And then we want to extend that to other chains as well. Can Agoric do that, right? And so our answer is yes, we can definitely do it in Cosmos IBC. And in the short term, midterm future, right, be able to do that with EVM and Solana. But I think there's going to be a big trend, right? It's people with domain expertise who have a solution that want that facility to be smooth for people onboarding into Web3. And then I think orchestration and Agoric can really hop on that, right? I mean, I think that's the future for Agoric in a lot of ways. So that's my personal opinion, but I do see that as a trend happening.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's good, really good perspective, especially for our team. So I do want to close it with our guests. Our last question will be for Ankit. So how do you see this partnership influencing the developer community, both in India and just overall in general globally?
Yeah, I see a lot of things. But before that, I would want to also talk about one more trend from developers' perspective, because Santi was talking about some trends in the industry. I think in last couple of years, there are way too many chains, way too many hackathons, way too many events, and developers, like the real builders, quote unquote, right? They are tired of kind of running from one one place to another. Like obviously there are a lot of like hackathon hunters, as we call them, that go from hackathon to kind of win money. But I think the real builders who want to build for the long term, they're like extremely exhausted with the options that they have available. And I think that is where Agoric orchestration kind of fits in a really, really beautiful way, right? So that's a trend that Ryzen and Agoric will definitely want to capitalize on. Yeah. So now coming to the question. So basically, I think this partnership is going to influence a few things, locally and globally. One is like obviously lead the multi-chain trend. That's like a no-brainer. I think the thing that is even more meaningful than that, and it's hard to realize from the outside, is that uh, working together with Agoric, I think from developers and the builders, we are gonna get a lot of learnings, like in terms of developing multi-chain products, right? And that is like invaluable. Whosoever gets those learnings first will be able to crack it. And like we already had a lot of learnings from our couple of fast tech sessions that we did. And I think because let's be honest, building like multi-chain stuff is extremely hard. Like you heard Giovanni saying about like setting things up, kind of people's computers getting like frozen and stuff, and a lot of other different challenges, right? So the like in my mind, like the only KPI for me personally is to get all those learnings so that we can make the experience of building multi-chain products smooth, really, really like just
Top class.
just like just top class. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic way to kind of end the conversation. And again, for those of you watching, appreciate it. If any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave it in the thread under the live stream on X or on YouTube. You can leave your comments there. We'll get to them. We'll answer your questions as fast as we can. But gentlemen, I think that was a fantastic conversation, and we appreciate the three of you for joining me and Ant-Man on the Composer series.
Thank you.
Thanks
guys.
for coming out, everyone. This was a good one.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic.
Hopefully people remember all the alpha.
There
Hopefully
was a
people
lot
watch
there.
it
I
on
mean,
YouTube again.
it's there for people to rewatch. And again, if you're watching us in the future, we appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the whole thing. We'll leave everyone's handles in the thread so you can follow them on X. And then just in general, you can follow Agoric and Ryzen on X as well. Just keep following the journey along as we continue to partner together. But again, gentlemen, appreciate it. Thank you all for coming on.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good evening.
And man, I think that was one hell of a conversation. Our second episode in of the Composer series, the first one with Native, today with Ryzen. Another fantastic conversation. And I think hopefully one where people felt inspired, because I feel like there was a lot of, information that was given in terms of, experiencing the hackathon, what to expect working. If you do come and work alongside our team at a hackathon live and with the Ryzen team as well, or Class A, they're top of the line, will help anybody, who shows up, and just in general, a fantastic time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great conversation. A lot of good learnings. Even if you weren't at India Blockchain Week, or you're just thinking about multi-chain, even in general, there's a lot of good stuff in there from Giovanni and Ankit and Santi about what's on people's minds, what are challenges that developers are facing, and what are some different ways to tackle that. So a lot of good information, as Giovanni said, lots of juicy alpha.
100%. And again, appreciate all of you for tuning in, and thank you for all the love. 55K on X, and our channels continue to grow. Shout out to the Discord folks also for always being super supportive and giving your feedback. We're always in there, having conversations with everybody. Make sure to follow us, stay updated, and again, we'll see you in the next one. All right? Appreciate it.
Cheers.